Hello, would you like to destroy some evil today? If you are, let's jump right into the video. Hey guys, it's Christian from Lost in Discovery, and on this episode of Cosmere Lore, we are going to talk about our favorite sentient sword in the Cosmere, Nightblood. I hope you enjoyed my lighting glow up here. I'm really happy with this new setup and can't wait to use it in future videos. Now, spoiler warning for this video about Nightblood. I would strongly recommend that you've read Warbreaker before you watch this video, and if you have at least read up to Oathbringer, to the end of Oathbringer in the Stormlight Archive. I'll be talking a bit about Rhythm of War towards the end, but I'll put a massive spoiler warning before I get into Rhythm of War stuff. Short version of that, read Warbreaker and up to Oathbringer in the Stormlight Archive. Rhythm of War stuff is at the end if you've done that too. Alright, let's do it. So the origins of Nightblood start on the planet Nalthus, and this is where the story of Warbreaker takes place. On the planet of Nalthus, there was a group of returned known as the Five Scholars. These guys were doing research into the powers of breath and trying to push its boundaries and what you could do with it. The Five Scholars were the group that figured out how to create lifeless with only using one breath instead of previously 50 breaths, so they have made huge impacts on the world that Warbreaker takes place in. But perhaps their most significant invention or discovery was the sword Nightblood. And Nightblood was created by two members of this group, Shashara and Vasha, who you might also know as Zahel from the Stormlight Archive. Vasha and Shashara were lovers. They traveled throughout the Cosmere together and were trying to make discoveries regarding breath and different types of investiture. And if you don't really know what investiture means, it just means different types of magic systems in the Cosmere. Now, what inspired them to create Nightblood partly was seeing shard blades in Roshar. They didn't know how they were made, but they knew that they wanted to create something similar to them. Nightblood was mainly created by Shashara, but Vasha was there to help out, and it was created with 1,000 breaths invested into it. Now, that's a very small amount to start off with, but it grew over time. It was given one simple command: destroy evil. Now already, if you've read these books, you know how a very loose term like that can lead to catastrophic and misunderstood effects. Now the problem is that Nightblood itself does not have a concept of what evil is. It has gained some sort of sentience, but it has no experience with humans, interactions, or how societies work, so its view of evil is quite distorted. I think Sanderson himself sums it up way better than I could right here. This is what he says. Nightblood himself, unfortunately, doesn't quite understand what good and evil are. However, he knows that his master can determine who is good and who is evil, using the sword's power to make people sick or through other means. So he pretty much lets whoever is holding him decide what is evil. And if the one holding the sword determines deep within their heart that they are evil themselves, they will end up killing themselves on the sword. Now, you've probably recognized this from many instances in the Stormlight Archive and in Warbreaker as well. Vasha will throw out Nightblood and people are drawn to this sword. They feel attracted to it, they want to use it, and as you've seen many times before, they end up killing themselves. Now, we've seen at the beginning of Warbreaker, even if Nightblood is unsheathed just the tiniest bit, it can lead to catastrophic effects, and we've seen people impale themselves even with the sheathed version of Nightblood. Now, when you are sliced by Nightblood or stabbed by Nightblood or even nicked by Nightblood, you disappear into a puff of smoke and you are destroyed completely. We've known in Sanderson's Cosmere that things can live on in the cognitive realm and the spiritual realm's a bit of a mystery to us, but we do know that Nightblood destroys you in all three realms. So if you get nicked or killed by Nightblood, you are dead, as completely dead as you can get in the Cosmere. So following on, Shashara ends up using Nightblood at the Battle of Twilight Falls and causes destruction on a level unseen before in the history of Nalthus. Vasha is completely taken aback by this, and Shashara had full intention to share the process of how she made Nightblood to others, and he just thought, this could not happen. Nightblood is just an abomination. We have to stop this now. and he ended up killing Shashara with Nightblood, so she could not achieve that goal. So she is dead in the most complete ways you can get in the Cosmere. It's quite the tragic backstory for Vasha. We see Lightsong, when he's looking at the art every morning in his daily routine, he sees a depiction of Shashara holding Nightblood in this battle, and you just see that it's a very, very bloody affair. Now that's pretty much the origins of Nightblood, or as much as we know of it in Warbreaker. This is what Sanderson says about Nightblood's role in Warbreaker. Nightblood is part of a much larger story in this world. He's dropped casually in this particular book, more as a side note than a real focus of what's going on, but his own role in the world is much, much larger than his supporting part here would indicate. And Sanderson is absolutely right with that, because he's planning a sequel to Warbreaker with the working title Nightblood, where I'm assuming we'll get the origin story, or at least more of an understanding about Nightblood and where it came from. Now let's get to the fun part, how Nightblood plays into the Stormlight Archive. Now, I'm sure if you read Warbreaker before reading Words of Radiance, you will remember forever the first moment you see Nightblood in the series. It is one of those holy crap moments where you're just like, this is some of the best and most exciting stuff I've read in a while. And if you don't remember, it's after Seth is killed by Kaladin, resurrected by the Herald Nail, and is given a sword, who says, "Hello, would you like to destroy some evil today?" And you know right away which sword this is. I am ashamed to say I had not read Warbreaker before reading this scene. I read it after Words of Radiance. So you can imagine how much I feel like I missed out on such a big moment. Regardless, reading back, it's still super exciting. Now, despite that being the first acknowledgement or mention of it in the Stormlight Archive, if you want to look at the Stormlight Archive in a chronological way, Nightblood has been involved in the series much before this. It happens in a Dalinar chapter in his flashbacks when he first visits the Night Watcher, when he eradicates all memories of his wife. The Night Watcher is trying to figure out what Dalinar wants and actually ends up offering Nightblood to him. This is what she says. "Perhaps it is possessions you wish," she said. "Spheres, gemstones, shards, a blade that bleeds darkness and cannot be defeated. I can give it to you." And without a doubt, we know that is for sure Nightblood. Now, it's unclear how the Night Watcher found herself in possession of Nightblood, but there is a theory that Vasha / Zahel, as you know him in Stormlight Archive, traded Nightblood with the Night Watcher for some sort of deal about how he's existing on Roshar, but that's a very iffy theory with lots of holes in it. It's more like an assumption people have made. I'm sure if we do get a sequel to Warbreaker called Nightblood, we might get a scene that explains the transition from Nauthis to Roshar. Who knows? Anyway, the fact is Vasha at some point got rid of Nightblood. They had a very, very tumultuous and complicated relationship, as anyone does with this bloody sword, so yeah, I can't blame him for getting rid of it. So that's where he starts to show up in the Stormlight Archive, but then it gets really, really damn exciting in Oathbringer. One thing I noticed in doing research for this video that I found very interesting was when Nightblood is talking to Seth, or as Seth calls him, Sword Nimi, he comments that he can hear the voices in Seth's head. So that really does confirm that this is not just a mental illness thing going on with Seth. This is some sort of spiritual realm effect, it seems, that is happening to Seth. There's a lot there to dive into, but that's a whole other video, I think. When Nightblood talks to its owner in their head, it almost occupies that space. It can read people's thoughts, it can understand their mood, and this is what has led to the great banter we get between Nightblood and everybody else. It also seems he can talk to people passing by, and we've seen how he can make people feel sick in the presence of the blade. Now we see Nightblood in full effect at the Battle of Thalon Field in Oathbringer, and we see the fully destructive potential of this weapon, and it is glorious. Seth enters, flying down from the sky, ripping a Thunderclast in half like it's nothing. And from there you're just like, ooh, what is gonna happen with this sword? But we also see the detrimental effects it has. Basically, once you take Nightblood out of its sheath, it consumes investiture. So it consumes the investiture of the objects or people it's killing, but it also consumes it from the wielder itself. That's why we start to see the black tendrils and the veins bulging from the users of Nightblood. We see it consume their face. It happened to Szeth, it happened to Lift as she was helping him, and it is a terrifying potential. It seems that every time Nightblood destroys something, it inherits the power of that person or object. Probably the better word is it inherits that investiture, so it gains strength. And that's why, starting from 1,000 breaths, it has just gotten more and more and more terrifying as the story of the Cosmere progresses. So that's where we were up to by the end of Warbreaker and Oathbringer with Nightblood. Now, the next section is for you guys who are up to date and have read Rhythm of War as well. I wanted to keep this a separate section because I know a lot of us are still going through this new book. So, if you have not read, come back later whenever you do, because there's lots to talk about Nightblood and what happens in Rhythm of War. Alright, in Rhythm of War, it's like Nightblood had his time to shine. Well, I don't know why I'm saying his. Had its time to shine. Another thing I did not mention is people designate different genders to it. I believe Szeth refers to him as he, Lift refers to Nightblood as she, so it seems to be very fluid. Nightblood itself doesn't have no concept of gender, though it's trying to understand. Now, there are so many notable moments of Nightblood in Rhythm of War. One, when he chipped Ishar's honor blade. This was the first time we've seen an honor blade have any sort of resistance against it. We've seen shard blades clash but never get chipped or broken. Honor blades are a step up from a shard blade, but we see that Nightblood took a freaking chip out of it, and I know it seems like nothing, but in this world of the Cosmere, that is ridiculous. And Ishar, the Herald Ishar, is totally shook by this and gets out of dodge so fast. 2, in the same scene, Szeth is able to use Nightblood to close a I can never say this word. Szeth uses Nightblood to close a perpendicularity, which has been unseen before. Dalinar asks if he has destroyed it, but the Stormfather confirms that Nightblood just closed it and it could be reopened. But reading the scene again, you see that Nightblood fills itself with the investiture from this moment, and it gets stronger and stronger. It drinks the energy from the people and things that it consumes. But I know most of you who clicked on this video are waiting for me to talk about one moment, maybe one of the biggest moment in any of the Cosmere books ever. And that is when Taravangian uses Nightblood to kill the vessel of the Shard of Odium, Raze. Probably the most mind-blowing moment in Rhythm of War. So we know that Szeth actually did kill Taravangian. He killed him with a normal blade, but there was this moment in between moments where as he was passing, he was going into another realm. I'm not sure if it's the spiritual realm or the cognitive realm. Reading the chapter again, it just says Taravangian was taken into Odium's realm, and in that realm Taravangian saw a manifestation of Nightblood. He could still see it, and in that moment he knew what to do. It's part of the diagram, it's part of what was meant to happen for Taravangian. He knew in that moment what needed to be done, and it's so perfect. He took Nightblood and rammed it up into Odium, killing the vessel of that shard, Raze, and it's described that Nightblood was full and contented. He needed no more investiture. He drank more than he could handle and was as powerful as possible, I'm assuming, because of it. With the death of Raze, someone needed to take up the shard of Odium, and who better than our boy Taravangian. So I think that really sums up the true power of Nightblood. It must be, I'm calling it, the most powerful, terrifying and destructive weapon in all of the Cosmere. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video about Nightblood. I hope you enjoy this new lighting setup I have. If you are new to the channel, I have so much Stormlight content on my channel. Please check it out. And if you want more, let me know. I can't wait to keep building this and keep making more videos. This has been so much fun to get back to Stormlight. I miss doing videos on this, and it's so hard not to put down Wheel of Time and go right back to the Cosmere, but don't worry, I'm gonna stay focused. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys all in my next video.